Hello everyone, Bookcore98 here, and today I'll go over why the horseshoe theory is bullshit. Now before I go on, I am trying a new recording thing with QuickTime on my Mac, so if this video looks a little janky, that is why. Now, the horseshoe theory is, as it states right here in Wikipedia, the horseshoe theory states that the far left and far right, rather than being opposite and opposing end of a linear political continuum, fuck that up. In fact, closely resemble another, much like it ends of a horseshoe. There is a tribute to French writer Jean-Pierre Fay. Proponents of the theory point out a number of similarities between the extreme left and extreme right. Prosperity gravitates to authoritarianism or totalitarianism. Now, that to a person that does not have critical thinking skills or just got into politics, that may sound true. However, this is not simply the case. The far left and far right are actually, of course, very different, having very different views on how things should be handled. Let's see here. Origin, the earliest use of the term, again, was by Jean-Pierre Fay in 2002 book, Let's See de Ideology. Others have attributed to Seymour Martin Lippis, Daniel Bell, and the pluralist school. Now right here we have a very modern usage. It just says, and the term was used by Zionists conflate with left-wing opposition to Israeli policies with right-wing hostility towards Jews, referred to as new anti-Semitism from both far left and far right. Already we can stop right here and see that this is colossal bullshit. The far left and far right are against Israel for different reasons. The far left tend to be against it because we see it as an imperialist power that is on an illegal part of land that belongs to the Palestinians, while the far right may hold the same view as that. Most of the time it's because that they're ethnically Jewish, and it can also vary from what person on the far right believes. This is of course, basically a cop-out to not understanding radical politics. This is what people use to say, oh, they're just the same thing. In reality, it's nothing near to the truth. Of course, there's also been criticism about the usage, and I'm going to give my own criticism on that. I'm not going to read here from Wikipedia. But so what I'm going to do in today's video is first look up the core ideologies of communism and the core ideologies of fascism, and show where they do compare to be similar, seem to be similar, and where they are not similar. Yeah, I am on. I found this website right here that actually gave a fair view on communism, because of course when I review extreme political theories, most of the websites like to give shit to in any way possible in order to maintain the status quo. But moving forward, here's some of the main goals of communism. One is class struggle. Central to communist ideology is the idea that human history is intertwined with economics and class struggle. It begins with primitive communist societies where all members depend equally on whatever the society produces. Private land ownership has no meaning and individuals are entirely free. An excellent example of such a society is Native American cultures prior to the arrival of Europeans. Eventually, society evolves to a point where wealthy individuals, called the bourgeois, own all property and the means of production. Workers, called the proletariat, are enslaved through wages. Over time, they inevitably recognize their plight and rise up in an international movement to overthrow the bourgeois. Ending private ownership of property and the means of production. Communism can never exist with private ownership of property, and in order to achieve a class society, all citizens work cooperatively. The communist phrase of "from each according to his ability to each according to his need" means a person's contribution to production has no effect on their access to what society produces. In this way, there is no need for competition and private property. Since the workers control the means of production, all share equally in benefits, success, or the consequences of failure. Communism through socialism. Socialism is referred by Marx as a lower form of communism. And this is where you get a lot of confusion. People calling the Eastern Bloc communist states, because Marx didn't use communism and socialism. He didn't use it interchangeably. He just called it lower communism, higher communism. Lower communism is socialism. Anyway, going on, and it is necessary to alter society into a truly communistic state. In a socialized system, the state comes to control all the utility of major economic systems. Banks and all social services are nationalized with careful centralized planning. A purely communist society that no longer needs money, trade, profits, or wages evolves. Marx believed personal security would end up psychological stress that resulted from feelings of isolation and powerlessness over one's destiny and inequality. And last, Marxist Leninist communism. Marx believed class warfare and the ultimate evolution of communist society was an inevitable process within industrialized societies. By the early 20th century, however, communists like Lenin believed the process required revolutionary impetus. Industrialists and monarchies needed to be overthrown and replaced with socialist governments. Political opposition and religion were seen as threats to state cohesion, and thus, in most communist nations, religion is repressed. This is not all nations, by the way. The only Eastern Europeans to actually ban religion was Albania, but moving on. And only the Communist Party rules enforced patriotism and loyalty is an express goal in communist countries where the fate of happiness of individuals where the fate and happiness of the individual is inextricably linked to that of the state. Now, this actually gave a fair view on what communism wants to achieve. However, I am critical of the part where it says enforced patriotism. I don't think it was really enforced, but when you're talking about a Cold War that happened back then, pretty much both sides, the bourgeois and the communists had to have enforced patriotism because it was really just, you're either with us or you're with them. If you're against us, we'll kill you. If you're not, we'll help you live, yada, yada, yada. And the loyalty is mainly expressed, it's to help express to the community. You have to maintain loyalty to your community, help out your fellow man, which is something we don't see within capitalism or individualist type societies. It's all about helping your fellow man. Alright, right now I'm on the Britannica website, and here are the common characteristics of fascist movements. There has been considerable disagreement among historians and political scientists about the nature of fascism. Some scholars, for example, regard it as a socially radical movement with ideology ties to the Jacobins of the French Revolution, whereas others see an extreme form of conservatism inspired by the 19th century backlash against the ideals of the Enlightenment. And I have to say it is most likely the latter. I doubt any fascists will have any connection to the Jacobins at all. If you don't know who the Jacobins are, they're basically the early form of French socialists. They are actually a very famous group within the left, that is, and they're actually they're very well known in France back then. It's a major part of their history. Anyway, one reason for these disagreements is the two historical regimes that are today regarded as paradigmatically fascist. Mussolini's Italy and Nazi Germany were different in important respects in Italy. For example, anti-Semitism was officially rejected before 1934, and it was not until 1938 that Mussolini enacted a series of anti-Semitic measures in order to solidify his new military alliance with Hitler. Another reason is that the fascist well-known opportunism, i.e. their willingness to make changes in official party positions in order to win elections or consolidate power. Finally, scholars of fascism themselves bring to their studies different political and cultural attitudes, which often have a bearing on an importance they assign to one another aspect of fascist ideology or practice. Secular liberals, for example, have stressed fascism's religious roots. Roman Catholic and Protestant scholars have emphasized its secular origins. Social conservatives have pointed out quote-unquote socialist and populist aspects, and social radicals have noted it's in defense of capitalism and elitism. Alright, let's move on. First, it's its strong opposition to Marxists. Fascists make no secret that they fucking hate Marxism and want to strip in all stripes. From totalitarian communists to democratic socialists, fascists promise to deal more firmly with Marxists than had earlier. More democratic rightist parties. Mussolini first made his reputation as fascist by launching armed squads of black shirts striking the workers and peasants in 1920 to 1921. Many early Nazis had served in the Freikorps, the parliamentary group formed by ex-soldiers to suppress leftist activism in Germany at the end of World War I. The Nazi SA, I am not going to try to pronounce that, or brown shirts clashed regularly with German leftists in the streets in 1933, yada yada yada, and you know the whole bullshit with Steven Crowder and Ben Shapiro saying, "Oh, Nazis were just left wing." No, they were fucking not. If you want to talk about left wing faction of the Nazis, those are the Strassers, but they never got into power because they were purged during the Night of Long Knives. For French fascists, Marxism was the main enemy. In 1925, Valois, leader of the Fascists, declared that the guiding principles of organization was the elimination of socialism and everything resembling it. In 1926, Tattinger declared that the primary goal of his patriotic youth was to defeat progress of communism by any means necessary. And we go on with each different forms of fascism, such as the Austrian fascism that didn't last long, Finnish fascism, which was very popular in Finland for a while. That's how come one of the reasons why the Soviet Union invaded. And then you had the Falange, which was the Spanish fascism, but that never took off as Franco, from what fascists told me, Franco was authoritarian capitalist. And Portuguese blue shirts, so called themselves national syndicalists, regarded systematic violence against leftists and revolutionaries. So yeah, so much for this whole quote unquote pretty much the same thing. No, they are not. This one example pretty much fucking proves it. Alright, so opposition to parliamentary democracy. Fascist movements criticize parliamentary democracy. Let's just make it clear now. Most fascists are against the idea of democracy and believe that in a strong leading sense of a leader. Unlike socialism, which believes at least some form of either direct democracy or republican democracy, fascism does not. They believe democracy is the undermine of natural selection of ruling elites and was nothing other than the systematic cultivation of human failure. Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's minister of propaganda, maintained that people never rule themselves and claimed that every history-making epoch had been created by aristocrats. Primo de Rivera, the guy who made Phalangism, wrote that our Spain will not emerge from elections, but will be saved by poets with weapons in their hands. Before they came to power, however, Hitler and Mussolini, despite dislike democracy, were willing to engage in it. Now, I'm not going to give them too much shit for that because, let's be honest, if you're bound to a culture you don't like and there's certain ways for you to change it, you're going to have to bite the bullet sometimes and then, get involved with things you may not like. Let's just be honest. That's going to happen in every way. Opposition to political and cultural liberalism. Okay, although circumstances sometimes made accommodation to political liberalism necessary, fascists condemned the doctrine of placing the rights of the individual above all rights of the Volk, encouraging decisiveness, i.e. political pluralism, tolerating decadent values, and eliminating power of the state. Now, both communists and fascists are against liberals. This is true, but in different ways. Communism is against liberalism for the sake of not focus, because it doesn't focus on the community, only on personal self-interest. As you remember my book review on Mao and combat liberalism, that was against free speech, saying we shouldn't let things pass for the sake of peace. We have to critique one another. We must stay together, stick together, so we can get through these tough times. And at times, not to mention, communism does support things such as freedom of expression and art, unlike fascism, which is more restrictive to certain arts and certain things as well. I hope I made sense. Fascist propaganda also attacked cultural liberalism, claiming that it encouraged moral relativism, godless materialism, and selfish individualism, and thereby undermine traditional morality. Anti-Semitic fascists associate liberalism with Jews in particular. Indeed, one precursor of Nazism, the political theorist Theodor Fritsch, claimed that to succumb to a liberal idea was to succumb to the Jew within oneself. So this is of course, the different views of why we're against liberalism from a communist perspective and a fascist perspective. It's for completely different reasons. That we may share the same hatred for liberals, but it's for completely different reasons. Totalitarian ambitions. Although Hitler had not revealed the full extent of totalitarian aims before he came to power, as Führer, leader of the Third Reich, and this is not only control all political power, but also dominate many institutions and organizations institutions and organizations that were previously independent of the state, such as courts, churches, universities, social clubs, veterans groups, sports associations, and youth groups. Even the German family came under assault as members of Hitler Youth were told it was their patriotic duty to inform on anti-Nazi parents. In Italy, Mussolini adopted the title Il Duce, the leader, and his regime created billboards displaying slogans such as "The Duce is always right," "Il Duce ha sempre ragione," and "Believe, obey, fight," "Credere, obbedire, combattere." It should be noted that despite their considerable efforts in this direction, neither Hitler nor Mussolini succeeded in creating a completely totalitarian regime. Indeed, both regimes were run by competing and heterogeneous, I did not pronounce that right, power groups, which Hitler and Mussolini played off against each other. And the fascists in Italy were significantly limited to the wishes of traditional elites, including the Catholic Church. Now, that's another thing that I have to hit on. The idea of totalitarianism. Actually, what? No, I may skip that. But what they say, communist and totalitarianism and fascist totalitarianism, it's it's sometimes, how can I put this? It's basically, exaggerated upon. As much as I hate Nazi Germany and fascist Italy, not everything the historians say is true. Like, not everything they say about the quote unquote communist totalitarian was remotely true. Alright, so conservative economic programs. There were a few, usually small fascist movements whose social and economic goals were left centrist. Hendrik de Man in Belgium and Marcel de Tott in France, both former socialists, were among those who hoped to eventually achieve a fair distribution of wealth by appealing to fascist nationalism and class conciliation. In Poland, the camp of national radicalism, Oboz Narodovorachaliny supported land reform and nationalization of industry, and fascists in Libya and Syria advocated for Arab socialism, Baathism, basically. Now, here's where it comes, because this is where it differs from place to place. When it comes to economics, most fascists would be for private property, but they have to serve in order to the state. They also believe in a meritocracy. Basically, you're paid off how much you worked, how much work you put in. However, the economic programs of the great majority of fascist movements are extremely conservative, favoring the wealthy far more than the middle class or in the working class. Their talk of National Socialism was quite fragile in their respect. Although some workers were duped by it, before the fascists came to power, most remained loyal to the traditional anti-fascist party of the left. As historian John Weiss noted, property and income distribution and the traditional class structure remained roughly the same under fascist rule. What changes there were favored by the old elites or certain segments of party leadership. So basically, fascism is somewhat of an oligarch, but however, their goals is to more class collaboration, unlike what the left is trying to do with destroying class in general. This is another part that centrists, liberals, and conservatives don't understand, and that's how they always try to liken us together. That's not how it works. Although Hitler claimed that the Nazi Party was more socialist than its conservative rivals, he opposed any Marxist-inspired nationalizations of major industries. On May 2nd, 1933, he abolished all free trade unions in Germany, and his Minister of Labor, Robert Ley, later declared that it was necessary to restore absolute leadership naturally at a factory that is the employer. Nazi anti-capitalism, such as it was aimed primarily at Jewish capitalism. Non-Jewish capitalists were allowed to keep their companies. The wealth of distinction made by the Nazi Party's original program and never changed. It never changed. Although Hitler reduced unemployment in Germany, most German workers were forced to toil for lower wages and longer hours under worse conditions that had been caused during the Weimar Republic. His solution to the unemployment problem also depended on the recruitment of thousands of men into the military. So yeah, that's another big difference when it comes to the whole economic system with communism and fascism. Communism is more for planned economics, while this is more for collaboration and right here corporatism. The fascist economic theory of corporatism called for organizing each of the major sectors of industry, agriculture, The professions and the arts and state are management controlled. Trade unions and employer associations are corporations, each of which would negotiate labor contracts and working conditions and represent the general interests of their professions and a larger assembly of corporations. God damn it. Or corporatist parliament. Corporatist institutions will replace all independent organizations of workers and employers, and the corporatist parliament will replace or at least exist alongside traditional representative and legislative bodies. In theory, the corporatist model represented a third way between capitalism and communism. This is of course where the famous term third way comes in, allowing for the harmonious cooperation of workers and employers for the good of the nation as a whole. In the practice, fascist corporatism was used to destroy labor movements and suppress political dissidents. In 1936, for example, the economic program of the French Social Party included working hours and vacations with pay for loyal workers and not for disloyal ones, and benefits were assigned by employers, not the government. The Nazi Strength Through Joy program, which provided subsidies for vacations and other leisure activities for workers, operating similar principles. Again, another huge difference between socialism and fascism. It's beginning to see like it's not really similar at all now, is it? And I'm not going to go over the alleged social equality stats because we all know about that. Of course, we also know that most fascists favor military values such as courage, unquestioning obedience to authority, and discipline. And we also have imperialism. Many fascist movements have imperialistic aims. Hitler hope his Drang nach Osten, drive towards the east, by conquering Eastern Europe and Russia, would not only prove racial superiority of Aryans over Slavs, but also provide enough plunder and Lebensraum, living space, to overcome continuing economic difficulties at home. Mussolini's imperial ambitions were directed at North Africa, and his armies invaded Ethiopia in 1935. Of course, I think he's trying to restore like the old Roman Empire. That was the goal. Polish fascists advocated retaking all the lands that had ever been ruled by Polish kings, including Eastern Prussia. Finnish fascists wanted to create a Greater Finland at the expense of Russia, and Croatian fascists advocated for Greater Croatia at the expense of Serbia. Oh yeah, though, Tashe. I fucking hate you, Tashe. I'll tell you what, fucking worse than the Nazis. Oh god, what they did was fucking horrible. And one more page. I'll go over one more page, because I think by now you get the basic ideas of how it's not really they're not really the same thing. They're really not. Now, the leadership principle. Fascists defended Führerprinzip, leadership principle, the belief that the party and the state should have a single leader with absolute power. Hitler was Führer, Mussolini, the Duce, both words for the leader, who gave the orders that everyone else had to obey. The authority of the leader was often enhanced by his personal charisma. Now, this is basically, if I'm correct, the fascists had unlimited power. The leader usually have unlimited power. One of the communist leaders would have to go through basically their own version of parliament. Like, contrary to popular belief, Joseph Stalin didn't have all the power. It was shared amongst the people. Amongst the people in the Kremlin, the parliament, basically, with all the other republics. We already know about the new man idea. Fascists aim to transform ordinary man into the new man. A virile being who would put decadent, bourgeois, cerebral, Marxism, feminine, liberal society. The new man would be physically strong and morally hard, admiring what is forceful, vigorous, defining everything that is weak and soft. As Hitler described, the new man is slim and slender, quick like greyhound through the leather, and hard like corrupt steel. The new man was the man of the past as well as the future. Italian fascists held up the soldiers of ancient Rome as well as Breton de Juvenel, praised the brutal barons of the Middle Age, original through Europe. The Franks, fascist man, he wrote, was a throwback to the royal property of 100 of yesteryear, to the type of man, the family, and a clan. When this type of man ceases to win, esteem disappears, the process of decadence begins. And yeah, that's basically the main difference between the two in general. So, in conclusion, fascism and communism are basically Nothing alike. The horseshoe theory, of course, is a load of shit. And the only things that are similar about fascism and communism aren't really that big of similarities, just basically coincidences. Like if I was to say like the libertarian left will have the same values as the libertarian right, that simply isn't true as they both have different values and goals. They are not the exact same thing. This is a theory that centrists, liberals, and conservatives only point out when they really don't know anything about radical politics. Now, needless to say, I do enjoy talking to political opponents such as some fascists like Culture Thug and people in the comments section. Yeah, my opinions are much different, but I only like to talk to them only to exchange ideas and see why they believe what they believe. And I just like, talking to different people about different things. And yeah, that's basically it. But again, the horseshoe theory is a load of fucking shit. There's really no other way to put it. I gotta stop repeating myself. But anyway, this has been Bakor 98. Like, comment, subscribe, and if you have any critiques, questions, or anything interesting to say, of course, leave them in the comment section below. I enjoy reading them, and I will respond to them. And in the next video, I'll go over the art form known as Cubism. I am very interested in doing that next video. I don't know when it will be up because again, I'm back in school and I got a lot of work to do. The fact that I just did this tonight is amazing because I didn't even feel like doing it today. It just came out of the wheels like, fuck it, I'll do this video right now. But yeah, this has been Core 98, signing off.